Okay, let's get this show on the road. This is a model that was created for the Fundamental series. It's a very simple set of a kind of warehouse complex. And it also fits with blocking because it's a very simple model, very low poly. So it's ideal for the type of blocking process that you normally get involved in. Note that I've already set my aspect ratio in this particular instance. I've set it to a standard 16:9, so it's usually a good thing to get your project sort of set up the way you want it before you kick off. And it's often the case with previz that you will probably have access to a 3D model in some form. Art departments normally generate them. Big favourite art departments are the likes of SketchUp. So they may have provided you with a model, and if you're about to do some blocking and you have access to set drawings or location information, then why not use it and start your blocking process that way. So typically I will start my blocking process in iClone and make my floor plans from there. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got here. I'm just going to switch to the scene manager and let's open up a few things so we can see what assets we've got. I've got this object here called floor plan, and I'm just going to home on it, and it is deliberately this rather revolting magenta, purely because I want to draw your attention to it, because we're just about to discuss what it's there for. Now, this is going to form our floor plan. This basically is the area of interest where our action is going to be, where our actors are going to play out the narrative. And therefore, this is the area that out of this huge set that I actually want to be my floor plan. So all I've done with this is I've made a camera called Cam Floor Plan. This is looking vertically down from above, and the floor plan is exactly matching the aspect ratio of the viewport. So the plane that I created from one of this default props has been sized so that it fits the 16:9 viewport perfectly. And if I come up here, you'll see that the cam floor plan's locked, and the reason it's locked is because I have to render it. I'm just going to unlock it, and I'm just going to pull back out a bit. And you can see if I hide the around the edges, you can now see we can see the floor plan inside the frame. So all I've done, as I said, is I've made an 800mm camera. That's, since iClone doesn't have orthogonal cameras, I've used the longest focal length I can lay my hands on, and literally fitted this to the viewport. So I'm just going to move the camera back and relock it. So now that we know what this is for, we need to actually make our floor plan. So to do that, I'm going to do two things. First, obviously, this magenta color is pretty horrible, so I don't really want that going into Shot Designer. So I'm going to switch to the material editor, and I'm just going to change the color of the floor plan to an off-white. The other thing I'm going to do, because sometimes you get into sections, you probably notice where the camera moves, I'm going to hide the ground plane. So if we look from the preview, so now I've hidden the ground plane, which means that we won't get the floor plan intersecting with the actual ground that's kind of there. So that's good. The other thing I want to do is I want to hide the roof. Notice the roof here. I've actually made the set in such a way when it came in from 3D Exchange, the set is constructed in such a way that it's in bits, subprops. So if I open up, well, I've got the warehouse open here, and I've got building 1, which I happen to know is this building, and you'll see that we have a roof subprop, and I can hide that because for a floor plan in this particular instance, some of the action is going to take place inside the warehouse, and the roof is getting in the way of the floor plan. So if I now go back to my floor plan view, you can now see I can see the walls of the warehouse, I can see the steps up here, and I can see the interior of the warehouse. So this is perfect for our floor plan for doing our blocking inside of Shot Designer. Just need to save it to disk now, so I'm just going to come up here to render image. I've got, as I said, I've got my image set to 1280x720, which is a widescreen format. I'm set to JPEG. JPEG and PNG are the two best formats for Shot Designer. I'm just using JPEG because it's smaller, and I'm just going to simply do a render. I'm going to navigate to my webinar render folder, and let's call this WH for warehouse floor plan and 0001. There we go. And because I'm going to have more than one floor plan if we're going to bounce around. That will fire up our preview. So here is the floor plan. I'll preview it. This is what we're going to take into Shot Designer. next. So just hide that, and we're good. So let's switch to Shot Designer and have a look at that. So here we are. This is Hollywood Camera Work Shot Designer. It's a great app, runs on iOS and Android, and it also, if you buy the Pro version, you'll get a desktop version that will run on Mac or Windows PC. And there is a free version you can try it as well if you want to find out what it's like to work with it, but I use this a lot. So this is what you're greeted with. This is a splash screen you'll get whichever device you happen to be on. And I'm just going to come over here and hit New Scene. And you're now going to get the simplest scene you've ever seen in your life. It is literally a blank canvas, and there's two actors. So we have a red actor and a blue actor. And remember, this is a blocking diagram. So we're looking down from above here. It's a 2D top-down application. The red character here is a male actor designated by a single black line across the body, indicating where the face is, the pointing direction. And the character on the right here, the blue one, is a female character indicated by two black lines. I'm actually going to change this character. So I'm going to click on it, click again, and down here under Edit Color and Gender, I'm going to switch to a blue male. Our narrative is going to be two male characters, and that's why I've done that. So there we go. Now, we've got this really blank canvas, so we do need to get our floor plan in, and you can do that by coming down here. There's a Add button down here, and this allows you to add a whole load of things into Shot Designer. I won't go into them all because obviously this isn't a Shot Designer tutorial. I'm just showing you a workflow here, and down here you can see I've got this background image, so just load that up, click Import Image, and I'm going to go to my webinar folder, Render, and here's the floor plan we've created. I'm simply going to open this. Now when I open it, you'll see an optimizing, resizing dialog briefly. I'll explain why it's doing this. And the reason for this is that the image was rendered in a size larger than Shot Designer can handle. And under those circumstances, it will scale it down to a size suitable for Shot Designer. And keep in mind, this is designed as an app, so you're not going to be loading massive bitmaps into it, otherwise it'll get very sluggish. And I'm actually using this resizing to my advantage because I want this floor plan to sync between Shot Designer and iClone. So when I go back to iClone, I need it to match, and vice versa. And to do that, I need to avoid touching any of these controls up here that allow me to resize or rotate or zoom this floor plan. I want it fixed in place, and the way I've learned to do that is to, as I said, make it oversized and let Shot Designer scale it, and then it will always fit. So that's why I've done that. So let's get out of that. Let's start our blocking. I've got two characters here, as I said. I've got my red actor, so I'm going to click on him and drag him. So you can see I'm dragging him around just by clicking on him. And I'm going to stick him here standing on this palette with the barrels. And this black line with the number 1 is his look. So I'm just going to click on that and drag it round. So turn him to look at the barrel. So he's like he's working with this barrel outside the warehouse. Our blue actor is going to be his boss, and he's going to start inside the warehouse. So I'm going to put him, say, over here and turn his look kind of this way. So that's kind of working nicely. And the boss is going to come out and deliver some lines to our red actor, which is going to be part of our narrative. But before I do that, I need to get some cameras in. So let's add a camera. I'm going to come down to the add feature again, and let's add a camera. Our initial camera is our green camera or Cam A. Click anywhere and it goes in. And I'm going to set this so my first shot is looking across my red actor, back up at the top of the steps here, so that when the blue actor comes out, you can actually catch him in the background of the shot. So that's kind of how I want this sort of sequence or scene to start. So that's my A camera in, and looking past my red actor. So let's get the blue actor doing something. So I'm going to set an action for him. At the moment he's inside the warehouse, but obviously I want him to come out. So I'm going to click on him, and I'm going to click again, and you'll see he's got a whole load of menu here. And the one I'm going to choose is Walk To right at the top. And then I'm going to click out here, and as you can see, I've now got an action line. He's going to walk out to the top of the steps here, and he's going to look down at our red actor and deliver some lines. So that's kind of our blue actor. Our red actor needs to react to him. So at the moment he's looking at the barrel, but we need to kind of give some indication that he's reacting to the fact that this guy is calling him. So I'm going to click on my number 1 look, and you can actually insert turns, so you can make him look before, turn before or after. I'm going to do a turn after the first one, and this is his number 2 look. So he's now going to turn and look at our blue actor up here. So you can see little arrows that will show the turn and the number 2 position. So now our red actor is looking in the right direction. The next thing I want to do with the red actor is I want him to walk over, because after he's been asked by the boss to come into the building, I want him to walk over to the bottom of the steps in preparation to go into the building. We're not going to go any further than that, because obviously this is a workflow demonstration, but to do that I need to give him some action. So I'm going to click on him and say walk to. I'm going to click on the bottom of the steps here, and then I'm going to turn him to look up the stairs. So there you go. So something like that as a starting point. So that's good. Now the other thing I can do is I can make him go on a curved path. So if I click here, I can click and hold, or I can click and get a menu like this. And I'm simply going to go add control point, and you see you can actually make any of these lines a curve. So if I want him to walk in a slight curved trajectory, I can do that. Let's get our B camera in. So I'm going to go back to the add menu and go add and get my B camera, the blue camera. We'll start it somewhere over here, just looking back. And what I'm doing with this camera is I want a wide shot, or wider shot, or long shot. And I want to catch both our actor here plus our blue actor at the top of the stairs. And not only that, but when I come to this shot, I then want this camera to follow the action of the red character walking over to the stairs. So that's kind of, really what I'm after. So I'm going to track the camera, or dolly the camera over. And to do that, just like with the actors, I can click on the camera and say, can you track to? I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to set the B position for the camera. Now, obviously at the moment the red actor is blocking the camera a bit, as you can see, so I'm going to put him further into the building, maybe bring the B camera out very slightly and turn it so he's looking up at the top of the stairs, or panning so the camera's looking at the top of the stairs where our blue actor is. So that means that the second position of our B cameras is going to be sort of an over-the-shoulder shot, looking up at the top of the steps at our blue actor. So this really is it. This is our blocking. I've just kind of literally done a quick blocking of a short bit of narrative. And the next stage, and probably I'd have done this if I was on a plane or a train, whatever, on set, and I've just done some blocking. And I've now back where I've got my main workstation or laptop or whatever, and I now want to see this in 3 dimensions. So I want to take this into the 3rd dimension. And of course, for that, we're going to use iClone. So I'm going to need this blocking diagram back in iClone for that. So to do that, I'm going to click on the save icon, which will drop us back to the main menu. So here it's just saying, can you save? It's not been saved yet. So I'm actually going to, for safety, I'm going to save this. And I've got a directory ready for it. I'm just going to call this WHC01. Get the underscore there. Okay, so WHC1, there we go. And that's now saved. And that, if you have a Dropbox account, this syncs through Dropbox, which is very handy. It means that anything you do on any of your devices will turn up on the other device automatically, which is very, very neat. To get the image out, I go to the Share Sync menu, and up at the top here, there's a whole load of options, but the one we're going to go for is a simple JPEG bitmap. So I'm simply going to select that. I've got the floor plan here. I'm actually going to call this Shot Designer. Now, I could call this a blocking diagram, but floor plan is a shorter name, so I'm just going to call it SD Shot Designer Floor Plan 001. So this is the first one now to Shot Designer. Save that, and that's now saving a JPEG to disk, which is just what we want. Okay, let's pop back to iClone. Now, before I bring this into iClone, there's a little bit of admin I've got to do, and the problem is that the render here, when it comes out of Shot Designer, it's not really a problem, it's the way Shot Designer works. If I open it up in an image viewer, you can see that there's this little white border around the edges. Shot Designer automatically puts a small border around everything because it's designed really for people to print and things like that, so it does this automatically around the largest object in your scene, which happens to be the floor plan. The border, of course, will affect the match inside of iClone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a utility that I use, which is going to fix this. So I'm simply going to use this thing called XM Convert, which is a free image converter, which I really like. I'm going to drop my floor plan into it. I've got an action set to trim off the exact number of pixels around all the borders to get rid of them, and then it's simply going to output back over the top of the file, the same file. So quick click convert, done, and if we go back and have a look, you'll see that sure enough we now have no border. So very quick and dirty. Always trying to find tools to help you do stuff like this as fast as possible. So there we are. We now have our floor plan. So let's go in a bit and load it up. So here is our original blank floor. I'm going to select the floor plan in the scene manager. And actually, before I do that, before I bring the floor plan in, let's just demonstrate what our actors look like inside of iClone. I think that would be a good thing. So I'm going to go to Content, Actors, Custom, and I have a Shot Designer folder. And here are my versions that I created of the actor inside of Shot Designer, except 3D. So I'm just going to bring out a red male character and drop them over here and home on them so we can see him. And here he is. This is a very simple character for the very reasons I discussed earlier on. No complexity to try and concentrate on blocking. And we can animate him really quickly. So there's two ways to animate. We can go to the motion menu, motion tab, and custom and motions. And I've got a Shot Designer folder. And I've created a lot of kind of poses for this character. So let's just do something like sit down. Well, yeah, here's a sit. There we go. So this character is now sitting. And then I can come along and say, well, actually, I'd like you to look down to the left. Now the character looks down to the left. So now if I play that back, looks down, well, the characters obviously could have been standing originally, but you get the idea. You can just quickly drop clips out. If the animation isn't what you want, then this is a boned character. So if I bring up the edit motion layer dialog, you can see that the character has a skeleton inside it, and I can simply just select and animate the character to do whatever I want using the sort of edit motion layer dialog. So the character can be either hand animated or it can use this clip library here, whichever is fastest for you at the time. Okay, so let's get rid of our character. Oh, one thing before I get rid of the character, let's bring our actor back in. I'll just show you one other thing I use when I'm working with actors like this. I also have a ruler, and if I go to Props, Custom, Shot Designer, I have a ruler, metric ruler, and I use this. I made this little ruler to tell me the height of a character, because you might have a child actor, in which case you have to scale, use the avatar proportions. You need to scale this whole avatar down. So if you have a child, you need to do that, because camera work is based on the height of the actor. So if you have a short actor or a tall actor, you need to be aware of that. I'm not going to worry about it for this demonstration, but I just wanted to show you that there's something I also use during my work, is this little ruler to quickly get things going. Right, okay, so let's get the blocking diagram in. So let's just zoom out and tilt down a bit. Let's grab the floor plan so we're rotating around it. So with the blocking diagram selected, I'm going to go to Materials, and this is going to be just a simple diffuse texture. Load up the Shot Designer floor plan. And there we go. So now we can see what we have in Shot Designer inside of iClone. Works very well. So we can see our actors, we can see our camera work, obviously our other actors inside the building, and that's an easy one because we can hide parts of the building. As I said, so if I come up here, I can simply just hide building 1, and now we can just simply see our floor plan. So we can see where to kind of actually place our actors. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to make sure that I'll go back to my actor tab. I'm going to bring our red actor back in and drop him on the floor plan. And now you can see I can just slide him wherever the position, his start position is, right there, for example. And the other thing we can do when we're doing this is we can also use the plan view to help us line stuff up. So if I come up here to the floor plan, I'm now looking down from above, and I can line them up more accurately. But because this camera's locked, you'll notice the camera's locked. I've actually made a close-up one that isn't locked, and this one I use for kind of animation and stuff. So now I can just move this closer version of the floor plan around, and get a better view of what my actor's doing. So now I can just line him up like so, and just put him in start position. I might therefore want to do the blue actor next, so let's go back to content. Let's find our blue male actor, blue male, there we go. Now, this is going to be interesting because when I drop him in, he's going to be right up in the air. Notice how big he is. Well, that's because I dropped him in this plan view, and it hasn't dropped on the ground, so you have to watch out for that. So here you can see he's got 17,000 centimeters in the air. On Z, I'm just going to zero him out, drop him to the ground, and then W to move, and I'm just going to put him on his start position in warehouse. E to rotate, and just have him looking down his direction line there. Okay, so that's good. We've got a red actor in, we've got our blue actor in. This is obviously going to be the thing that we're going to render out back into iClone eventually as a new floor plan from our orthogonal view. Let's get our actors positioned a bit better, so I'm just going to go back to preview and unhide our building. So let's unhide our building one. There we go. Just going to hide the roof. And what we want to do now is we want to get our actors positioned a bit better, because if I select our red actor and home on him, one of the things is he's actually sort of standing in the palette, because you may remember he's actually sort of stuck down inside the palette at the moment, standing on the ground. So I'm going to go move, lift him up, and I'm just looking for the bounding box to intersect the palette. That tells me he's just standing on the palette surface there. Doesn't have to be accurate, this is blocking after all. So there we go, our red actor's now in his start position. And remember, I'm doing all of this at timecode 0, frame 1, so none of this is animating yet, so that's always a good thing to do when you're in iClone. Let's focus on our blue actor, so I'm going to select him and home, and then I'm going to orbit round, because he's going to be embedded in the floor of the warehouse, as you can see here. So again, and the warehouse is raised, so that's obviously why that is. So the floor of the warehouse, so I'm just going to lift him up, like so. There we go. And then I'm going to go red male and home to jump outside. Just a handy thing to always use the home function to jump around your scene. So here we go. So we've got our start position for a red actor. We've got our start position for our blue actor. What we need to do now is get some cameras in to sort of line up with the cameras that we can see down here on the floor plan. Now, normally you might have, with the preview selection, you might come up here and go, okay, I'll create a camera. And then, of course, you get that camera and you have to move it into position. I actually have a camera saved to the library for this, and there's a particular reason for it, which I'll talk you through. So if I go to my stage, under custom camera, again, I have a shot designer folder. And I have this shot designer cam A, and this is nothing more than a default iClone camera, but it's positioned at world 0. So if I double click it, this is the view you get. And if I now preview and home on it, which will jump us out so we can actually see it a bit better. Here's our camera. And you can see here's the world 0 axes, Control A to turn them on and off. So the reason the camera's here at world 0 sitting on the ground is because cameras don't render in iClone, of course, they're not meant to. So I need an icon for the camera that will render when I take the floor plan back in. So to do that, I'm going to go to my props, and in the custom props, I've got this cam A icon, which is like a green glowing pyramid, and there it is. So that tells me where my camera is when I render it, and I'm just going to link it to the actual camera so that whenever I move the camera now, that will move with it. So there we go. So now I can move that. So that's cam A, and our scene is over there, so I'm just going to leave that for the moment. Let's get cam B in. So I'm going to go and pop back to stage, and I'm going to put the same camera in again because I'm just going to rename it. So this is going to be B camera. So immediately go to scene manager and rename it cam B. There we go. And again, switch to preview. And again, before I move it, because it's at world 0, I'm going to go back to my content manager, and I'm going to put in my cam B icon, and I'm just going to link that. And the reason I'm doing this is, as you know, is because you can't save linked objects into a library to bring back later. They can only be saved as part of an overall project. So it's just a quick little thing you have to do. So now we've got 2 cameras. I'm just going to slide them into our area of our set, just so that we can start looking at positioning them. To start doing this, I think this would be a good time to switch to my animation workspace and come up here. Let's go to animation workspace and let's just have a look. And let's just get the cameras in rough position first. So they're both in the ground at the moment. So let's just lift up A camera and then lift up B camera. And to get these placed, we're going to need to look down from above. So let's go to our close-up floor plan. And here they both are. So I'm just going to put the B camera looking the same direction as the floor plan guide that we brought in from iClone, or Shot Designer, sorry. And again, this one. Now, when you're rotating the camera, if you're not getting the proper rotational behavior, always come up here to the edit menu, check auto level is off. I really don't like auto level being on for this type of work. So that's a thing to do. And then now we can actually see what the camera's seeing. So if I come up here, notice I've got my mini viewports as part of my workspace. It's the way I like to work. Then I can now switch to A camera. And now I'm seeing what A camera's seeing. And as you can see, apart from the fact that it's too low, if I go back to preview, go to W move and raise it up, it's also too close to the character. But that isn't necessarily close. It's more a case of I need a wider lens. Because, as you know, we have a 80mm lens as the default. So let's go 35. And that looks a lot better. Although I think maybe that's a bit too wide. So let's try 50. Right, that's better. I think that's looking a lot better. So I think that is kind of going to work. Might also pan the camera slightly, like that, just to start with. Q to drop. Okay, so we need to actually start our acting. So let's start by animating our door open. So we have a door here, as you can see, this blue door. It's a sub prop. It's completely animatable. So if I just hide this for a moment and double click on it and make sure the scene manager is visible. So here I've got building 1, door A, so I've got the right objects, because if I now hit E, you can see that's the hinge of the door there. And I want to pause before the door opens, at least a minute, which is 60 frames in iClone land. So if I go forward to 60 on the timeline, and I'm going to put a hold key here. You can do that either by double clicking on the transform track for the door. Notice I've got object related track here selected, which means the door object is visible in the timeline. So now double click, put a key on the timeline. I could also use the plus button up there. And then I want the door to open, so I'm going to go forward to like 120, and I'm simply going to open the door. So we can see our actor. There we go, like so. Now, for good measure, you don't have to do this. This is blocking. You can, but if you can make it a bit smoother, you can just put an ease in and ease out on. So if I now wind back, we have a very simple door opens, ready for our actor to kind of come out of the building. So good stuff. Let's bring the actor out. So maybe as the door gets to about here, I'm going to start my actor's motion. So let's make sure I've got my blue actor selected. I'm going to make a hold keyframe for my blue actor. He's in the timeline here. So you can transform track plus button to add a key. So that's a hold key. So he's going to hold his position all the way up to this point, and then he's going to come out onto the top of the steps. So let's bring our mini viewport back, and let's tilt down a bit so we can see the steps a bit easier. Move tool W, and I'm just going to bring him out so he's kind of about here. Now, notice his head's chopped off now, which means we need to obviously reconfigure our camera. We'll deal with that in a moment. But that's kind of, where we need to be. So let's quit out of that. So we've now got our actor coming out. Let's see what speed he's doing. So I'm just going to play this little bit of the timeline. He's obviously a bit fast, so I'm just going to hold that Alt and zoom out on the timeline with the scroll wheel and the mouse. So let's just slow him down and just drag his second keyframe in the time. And that'll make him slower, because we want him to come out walking speed approximately. So you just got to think what an average person might look like walking. That looks pretty good. We'll go with that. Again, if you want to smooth the motion out very slightly, don't have to, but easy in, easy out will give you a little bit of a smooth motion, which always helps sometimes. That's good. So we need to fix the camera here, because as you can see, his head's cropped. So let's make sure our camera is selected. I'm going to double click on the camera, E to move. I want to make sure I'm in local rotate mode, so if you're not sure about that, don't forget. You can select it up here. It is in local rotate, but you can just repeatedly hit E to switch between world rotate and local rotate. And now I'm going to fix the camera position. I'm just going to tilt up a bit to make sure I've got our actor in. And just take some of the space out of the left-hand side of the shot. I think that's going to work nicely. Now, because I've done this and I'm not at timecode 0, I've animated the camera. Always something to watch out for because of the way iClone works. I've had to do it at this point in time because I need to see the actor out of the building, and at the beginning of the time he's in the building. So I just need to make sure I always use remove animation up here in the modify panel to get rid of the animation before I move on. Okay, so there we go. So if we now have a look through Cam A on the big viewport, we have our start of our animation. Door opens, actor comes out. I want him to look down at my red character and deliver a line. So let's make him look down. So he's going to come out, say, here, and then I'm going to double click my blue actor, hide my mini viewport, and I'm now going to switch to my motion panel. I'm looking for a suitable standing motion. So there's a load of standing motions here. And that's look down to the right. I want one to look down to the left. There should be one to do that. Stand, look down. There we go. Stand, look down to the left. So let's just double click to put that in the timeline. So now you can see we've got this little 60 frame motion clip. It's a 2-second pose of this pose. And you'll notice the character is looking a bit too much to the right. That's because these poses are fairly generic. They won't necessarily work for every situation. So you just need to kind of fix it using the edit motion layer dialog. So we're going to do that right now. But before we do that, let's just play the motion and see what it looks like. He comes out, and the look down is too fast. And it's always going to be that way because there is a default period of time in iClone for the blending area of a motion clip. And that's what's giving us this free animation, because these are static poses, but you can get this animation transition by using the blending area. So I'm just going to stretch the blending area out, which is going to slow down the head turn like that. That's much better. So now we've got that. So now we just need to fix the look angle. I'm going to make sure my motion track is selected, and I'm going to jump to previous keyframe here to make sure I'm dead at the beginning of the motion clip. And I'm now going to go to my edit motion layer panel and make that correction. So again, I'm just going to double click on my head bone, hit E to rotate, and I'm simply going to rotate the actor's head. If the bones are in the way, I'm just going to hide them, and I'm just going to make him look a bit more like he's actually looking at our actor. Something like that will do. Close that out. Let's wind back and have a look at that. Now you'll notice there's a bit of a problem here, and this is something that always happens. He's actually looking up now. He's got an animation at the beginning which makes him look up to the left, and then he corrects. That's caused by not putting a hold key on the motion layer track before I did this. This is a thing you have to kind of always keep in mind. And normally I'd put a hold key in, but I just wanted to show you how to fix one after the event. So to fix that, I just need to make sure I'm at the very first frame of the blend area, which is where the issue starts. And I'm simply going to open up the edit motion layer dialog, and I'm going to hit the reset button. That's going to put him back to his default bone position at the start of a project. So now if I wind back and play, you'll see that he behaves properly, which is exactly what we want. Excellent stuff. Okay, so we've got him looking down and acknowledging our red actor. He's got to deliver a line at some point, probably when he's looking down somewhere around here. I want him to deliver a line, but you'll notice if you look up here in our motion panel, there is no script button. And the reason for that is that these are non-human characters. They deliberately do not have a face. And because they don't have a face, you can't load a script or any lip syncing in. That's not a problem because you can still load audio clips, because any item in iClone has a separate soundtrack. So I've got the blue mouse selected here, and if I give my timeline a bit more real estate, and I select the soundtrack. Now I've got a soundtrack here. I can actually go and I can go find my audio. So I'm just going to bring up this Explorer window. I'm going to pop up and down into my audio folder. I've got this WAV file here of delivering a line. So let's drag this out, and when I drop it onto that track, you can see I can copy it on. So I'm just going to drop it where the cursor is. And now I can play this. So I'm going to wind back and play this. I'm going to keep quiet, so otherwise you won't hear the line. And there we go. Okay, so that plays back, which is fine. What we need now is actually, I'm going to mute that just so that we don't. I don't have that constantly playing while I'm showing you the rest of the demo. So now he delivers a line. We need our red actor to react to him. So that's the next thing, is our red actor. Here's his name called, and he kind of like needs to turn and look up. So maybe about here, if I double click our red actor, he needs to turn to look up at our blue actor, or at least turn or twist. Now we've got a whole load of motions here, like twists and things, lean forward, lean back. I'm looking for a twist. There's a stand twist left. We want a twist to the right. There we are, stand, twist right. So I'm just going to double click. So he's now, we'll have if I hit object red tracks, you can see our red character now has this motion on the timeline. It's too fast again, simply because of the default length of the blending area. So let's select the blending area and stretch it out. Now he turns and looks back at our red actor. So let's hear that from the top. So I'm just going to turn our audio back on and play it from the top. Let's just zoom out on the timeline a bit. Right, here we go. There we are. That's our start of our animation, our blocking. Now, you folks already know how to animate in iClone, so there's really no point in me making you watch the entire remainder of me animating the scene. So I've basically gone ahead and animated it. So if I switch to my standard workspace, and I'm going to go back to projects, I'm going to save this just for safety. Just call this temp. And then I've got this complete scene here. I'm just going to load it up. There we are. And this is now using the animation switcher. So again, let's make sure the audio is on. So I'm now going to play this through so you can see it. Now that blue object you saw there is just one of the icons that's in the way, so we can just hide those. So we've got these icons here that are going to be used later. So I'm just going to hide that. Let's have a look at what's going on here. So I'm going to go out to the preview, and one of the things I've got is let's make sure we can see our cameras. So let's open up our cameras and look at camera A and camera B. So there we are. Camera B, of course, has got a dolly on it now. So just like we have in our, you can see here. If I scrub forward, you can see the camera's dollying. Let's just mute the dialogue. The other thing is, if I do a Control D, you'll see that I've got a look at object for the camera. That's how I'm doing my B camera. It's basically looking at this, and this object is animating to give me a nice smooth motion for B camera when I'm panning and following the action. So you can see kind of it doing its thing there. The camera's just looking at that object, which is always a nice way of kind of getting nice smooth camera moves. That's our scene. It's kind of blocked out in 3D now. We see what our cameras are seeing. This is now ready to kind of go back into Shot Designer. So we now maybe back on the move on a plane or a train, and we want to work this scene while we're out there, and we need to do it in Shot Designer. So we want to get this floor plan back out. So if I go to my floor plan view, I'm going to make sure that my ground is hidden, which it is. I'm going to make sure my floor plan is visible. And oh, that's the camera, so let's make the actual floor plan visible. There it is. And what I want to do now is I want to get all these positions out, but the problem I've got is if I do a render right now, of course I don't get any of the cameras. I can't see where the cameras are. I also can't see where my actor positions are for the end of their animation. So I need to be able to get all of that back into my floor plan. So that's what I use the icons I showed you earlier for. So if I come to the scene here, I'm just going to zoom in so you can see them a bit better. I've got my camera A icon and camera B icon. These will render. So if I render now, of course, I'm going to see those two, and that's what I want for my floor plan. I also want to be able to see the end position of the camera here. See, the camera ends here. So I've automatically made a copy of this icon, and I've put it at the B position, or the number 2 position for B camera. And then I want to see my end position for my actors, and I've got a couple of little, if I go to content, you'll see I've got a couple of icons, glowy red balls that I use to represent the actors. So I've simply got them here, and if I now go out, you can see I've got a red ball for the number 2 position of our red actor, and likewise for our blue actor. So this is good. So now I've got my beginning and end positions marked. This now is going to become my new floor plan. Now, the other thing I'll point out is when we go back into Shot Designer, it's not always the case you're going to sit these cameras perfectly on the Shot Designer plan. It may be when you get into 3D and iClone, the positions don't quite work. For example, I might find the start position isn't quite right, and I might have to correct it, in which case this camera will no longer be in the same position as it was originally in Shot Designer. That's fine, because the whole point of this is that you're doing things in 3D now and getting what you want. And in 2D, you don't always necessarily know what the camera's exactly seeing. So this now is going to become our floor plan. So let's render this out. So I'm going to kind of switch to my final render workspace. And set to JPEG. I'm just going to come down here, and this is now going to be floor plan 2. So I'm going to steal the name and just rename it to number 2. So this is my floor plan number 2. And there you go. You can now see everything. You can see our start positions for actors and our end positions and all of that. That's good. But I also want to render out some storyboards. So if we actually go back to our switcher, you can load storyboards into Shot Designer, either ones you've hand drawn or photographs or whatever. And I'm going to do that right now. So I'm just going to switch back to my standard workspace, because I want to just quickly hide all those icons. So I don't want any of them turning up in my storyboards. And I'll just do Control D to hide the lookout object for the camera. Let's go back to final render. And now this is number 1 position. So this is our cam A. So let's render that. So come over here. Now I don't want this to be 1280, 720. It's going to be a little thumbnail. It's going to be way too big for Shot Designer. I find 180 pixels horizontal perfectly fine. So I've set a horizontal size of 180 with the ratio locked. And this is going to be my first storyboard frame. So this is going to be cam A. And this is going to be position 1. Okay. And there we have our storyboard for camera A. That's our camera. We then have our cut to cam B, sort of about here. So let's do that. So that's cam B. I'm just going to steal the name. This is cam B position 1. So this is the first position. And of course, cam B has a second position. So I'm just going to go forward to the end and steal the name. And cam B position number 2. So there we go. That is working well. So I've now got a set of storyboards, and I've got my new floor plan. And all we need to do now is pop back to Shot Designer. So let's do that right now. So we're back in Shot Designer. Now, I'm not going to resume editing the previous scene. I can do that. If you can see, if I come here, I can simply resume editing. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I've just loaded a completed scene, and the camera's in a slightly different position to the ones I've just demoed. They won't line up, and the whole point is to line things up. So I'm actually going to open the scene I saved previously, this complete one, and when I load it in, this is basically the original one that created that complete scene in iClone with the position of the actors and the cameras. And I'm now going to load, well, actually, before I load, I'm going to do a thing called a scene freeze. Because one of the things Shot Designer can do is it can store versions of your blocking, so you can always come back to them if you've made a mistake or you want to try different setups. So down here, there's a freeze, add a scene freeze. Let's call this warehouse setup 1. And this means that I can now load in a new floor plan, make adjustments, but I can still drop back to where I am right now if I want to kind of go back in time. Now that I've done that, I'm going to load in the new floor plan. So let's go to add image background, import image. So floor plan number 2. And as you can see, it loads in, matches perfectly to the previous floor plan. But now I can see my camera positions from iClone. And for example, you can see clearly here the modified cameras. So say I'd repositioned camera 1, the B camera's first position in iClone. Well, I can now come in here and move the camera into its new position, make that little correction. I can also, you see if I move the character, there's the red dot is on. So effectively, I can now just continue blocking process like this. Let's get our storyboards in. To do that, I click on the camera, bring up its menu by clicking on it again, import image, camera A. And now we have storyboard for camera A. Cam B has got 2 positions. I can put an image into both of those positions. So there's position 1. And there, import image is position 2. Brilliant. So now we've got our framing from iClone inside the Shot Designer, so we can see what the camera was seeing inside of iClone. And we can continue our blocking process. It's that simple. If I update this scene now, I can simply just save that as a new floor plan and go back into iClone. I can also hide stuff like the storyboards if I don't want them in the floor plan, all sorts of stuff like that. Once you get used to Shot Designer, you'll find it's a very cool product to work with. Okay, good stuff. That's really it for the workflow demonstration. I hope you found it useful, and I think we're going to hand over to Kai now for a Q&A.